The Star, the top headline is Raila DP Ruto splash billions in vote hunt. Just a quick look at the estimates of the campaign costs. A chopper costs around 150,000 shillings per hour. A 4x4 vehicle, 15,000 shillings per day. Posters, 60 to 90 shillings per piece. Banners, 500 shillings per piece. Mobilization, 200 shillings per person. Branded T-shirts, 300 shillings a piece. And a billboard, roughly 200,000 shillings per month. Still on the Star, lobbies issue IEBC. Lobbies sue IEBC over lack of physical voter rolls at polling stations. More on that is the groups want the courts to compel the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to use both an electronic and manual register. They include the Kenyan Human Rights Commission, Katiba Institute, International Commission of Jurists, Kenya, Haki Yetu, Inuka Kenya Trust, Africa Center and Open Governance, and Constitution and Reform Education Consortium. Still on the Star, investigation has been launched over a private armory discovered in a city estate. This story has been covered in most of the dailies, including the Daily Nation, so we'll jump straight into the Daily Nation. The top headline is Gangster or Gun Dealer. Ken Wycliffe Okello Lugwili is pictured front and center in the brown jacket on the Daily Nation. An ordinary swoop by auctioneers to attach the property of a city businessman of office rent arrears running into millions unearthed a cache of guns and bullets, pulling back the mask on his past dealings. For instance, one, Mercy Kaino murder. He presented himself to police in June 2011 as the owner of a dark Mercedes-Benz that was alleged to have dropped Mercy Kaino's body on Wayaki Way at the night she was murdered. 2, impersonation. In September 2003, he was sentenced to 9 years imprisonment for impersonating a former aide of former President Mwai Kibaki. 3, fake currency. In May 2019, he was arrested alongside 9 others for engaging in fake currency trade in a house in Kilimani, Nairobi. And 4, land fraud. In 2019, August, a court sitting in Nairobi found him guilty of transferring ownership of over 18 million shilling parcel of land in Lavington, Nairobi to himself, his accomplice by the name Moses Dirangu Ituma. More on that later on. Still on the front page of the Daily Nation, Ruto's Grand Schools Plan in the Kenya Kwanza Education Charter, which will be launched today, June 23rd of 2022. The Deputy President, William Ruto, promises to overhaul the education sector, but appears to go slow on the earlier pronouncements by his coalition to abolish the competency-based curriculum, CBC, and revert to the 844 system. So he's been quiet on that, but still wants to do some reforms. Still on the Daily Nation, inside Raila's strategy to win House majority, the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya coalition is determined to implement a controversial plan to weed out weak candidates using opinion polls in a strategy to win a majority of seats in parliament in the August 9 elections. That was the Star and the Daily Nation. Doreen?
All right, so I start you off on a health note. That is what the PD is holding for you this morning. And obviously, even as the spot check indicates that Kenyans are not adhering to what the ministry has alluded to in essence, wearing of face masks, particularly in the enclosed areas. Excuse me. This comes even as the PS now continues to urge the public to do that, adhere to the various COVID-19 protocols that had been given earlier, and also to ensure that they go for the COVID jab. This is even as she mentions that the reinstatement of the COVID-19 protocols have been prompted by the recurrence of the infection incidents that are now in hundreds, and these are being recorded on a daily basis. She also has disclosed that 11 patients are currently on life-supporting machines, while others are exhibiting COVID-19 symptoms have been admitted at various hospitals. This is why she is urging, better still, the ministry is urging Kenyans to ensure that they wear their face masks, and those that haven't gone for the COVID-19 jab to ensure they do that. For those that have gone for both jabs, to go for the booster shots. And away from that, coming to matters elections, with just 46 days to the polls, as it turns out, the the issue of the manual, using of manual register versus the digital register, looks like it's not agreeing well with quite a number of Kenyans, those from the various political divides, as well as, you know, the various voters, and even just civil society groups, because right now, as it turns out, the civil society groups says that electors could be denied right to cast their ballot if technology fails, and now also they have sued the IEBC in respect to, you know, the use of just the digital register. But in its defense, IEBC says that the digital register is more secure as opposed to the manual register, because as it works, as the IEBC explained in its first simulation process, is that once you have gone there and key in your details, then you proceeded to the voting, which is going to be done physically, then your details are archived, as opposed to the manual register, whereby it could be difficult or in terms of striking the name of a person whose already details have been verified, and this could probably prompt one person ending up voting twice. And also, again, in respect to this, the High Court had given a ruling that using of manual register could be misused. This is also largely what has prompted the IEBC to say that it's going to use the digital register. But again, also the questions that are coming forth in respect to this digital register is particularly for those whose fingerprints cannot be identified, particularly either because of, you know, the PWDs, so to speak, or, you know, someone has just been working so much so that the fingerprints are not quite then can't be identified. But again, in its defense, IEBC has come to say that those who fail will use their names, in respect, those whose fingerprints fail will use their names or ID card numbers as alternative methods of identification. This is what IEBC calls the alphanumeric identification. And again, also, there had been that question of what if there's no internet or no connectivity. Again, in its defense, IEBC has come to say that the KIMS kit does not necessarily use internet connectivity. It largely uses the SD cards. So in the event that that fails, it's just a transfer of the SD card from one KIMS kit to another KIMS kit. So clearly, this is what is coming up when it comes to the manual register and digital register. But as I mentioned, there's already a petition in court in respect to using of the manual or the digital register, and we are waiting to see how that will pan out. Whether IEBC will resort to manual registration in an alternative, or they'll just stick to the digital register. So even as this is happening still on the political front, now candidates on chopping board in Azimio poll zoning strategy. Remember that this is largely what Azimio La Umoja One Kenya coalition party had planned to employ, particularly in its stronghold, to ensure that they secure votes in those areas. We've also seen this largely taking place in the Ukambani region, particularly in Kitui County, where we've seen Charity Ngilu, who's stepped down for Julius Malombe, who was also eyeing the gubernatorial seat in that particular county. And so right now, as it turns out, even just as mentioned by the Azimio party running mate, that is Martha Karua, saying that the exercise will be fair and we will bring on board all aspirants from affiliate parties. This is in respect to the zoning, whereby also the party says that they are now going to employ opinion polls to pick the strongest candidates in the various areas, and like I said, particularly in most of their strongest areas. And again, also, obviously, KO's Mars 4th Green Park test run. We talked about this a bit just earlier, whereby the NMS is again on to its 4th test run. This in respect to decongest the city. They did 3 others last year, so this is the 4th one, going to take place in 5 days. Yesterday was day 1, today is day 2, and this is supposed to be complete on Sunday. Again, the same issues that emerged during the first 3 test runs is the same that also emerged yesterday. The issue of long distance of walking, particularly for the PWDs and the old persons walking from Green Park terminus to their various areas where they're going to board matatus to go to the various places of destination. But again, also what NMS is saying is that day by day they are continuing to record the various incidences that are occurring and see how best they can manage that, because at the end of the day they say that this terminus is going to be operational. It was to be open on May 24th, but that didn't happen, obviously, again because of the various complaints that came from passengers as well as the public service operators. And lastly, state now allocates 49 billion to fuel subsidy. This is a part of that plan that came in the second supplementary appropriation bill of 2022 that was signed by the president on Tuesday, whereby 10 bills were assented to law. And also largely what benefited from that is the fuel subsidy, which was allocated 49 billion. Initially, in respect to the budget that had been presented by the CS Treasury, 5 billion was what was to be allocated for the fuel subsidy in the next financial year. And this was actually a reduction of 84%. But this again didn't sit well with parliamentarians, particularly those in the National Assembly. And they had proposed an increase of 15 billion to the allocated 5 billion to make it around 21 billion for the fuel subsidy, citing the issue of inflation, which again would not really have sat well with Kenyans. But again, as it turns out, at least a reprieve for Kenyans from the next financial year, seeing that that fuel subsidy has been increased and now 49 billion is what has been allocated to it. Regina.
Now, sneak peek of this particular daily, looking at the Standard this morning, being the 23rd of June 2022, 46 days to the August polls. It's all about where the votes count. We have been talking about vote reach Mount Kenya. We have the IEBC making its register public. Now, apparently, the number of voters and the campaign visits therein. This paper has gone further to just compare what UDA is up to, or rather what Kenya Kwanza is up to, against what Azimio La Umoja One Kenya coalition is up to. So they're comparing how many visits each of these camps has made since the political scene started changing, when we got into Martha's campaign. So in Mount Kenya, we're looking at around 5.8 million votes. Yes. So far, Ruto has made 36 trips there. Raila has made 15. Rift Valley, where we have 4,065,021 votes. Ruto has made 21 trips, while Raila has made 15. Nairobi, where it boasts of 2.5 million votes, so to speak, Ruto has made 13 trips, while Raila has had 10 engagements therein. Western, where it boasts of 2.2 million votes thereabout. Ruto has made 22 visits there, while Raila has had 14. The coastal region, 1.9 million voters. Ruto has made 22 visits, while Raila has made 10. Ukambani, 1.7 million votes. Ruto has made 14 trips, while Raila has just made 2 trips. Now, this is an interrogation of the recently audited report by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission that reveals the region's leading in presidential candidates Raila Odinga and William Ruto must focus on to win the hotly contested election. Let me take this again: Mount Kenya, Western Coastal Region, Ukambani, Nairobi, and Rift Valley. That's what has been captured on the front page of this particular daily, with just 46 days to the poll. Now, also state agencies are playing ping pong. 46 days to the poll. Let's just have a quick sneak peek into that. Is that the tragedy of state agencies at cross purposes as poll date draws near. What are they talking about? Is that the polls agency cleared 241 candidates who had been flagged by the EACC 3 weeks ago. The Electoral Agency and the Communication Authority clashed over network coverage. So you're seeing state agencies who is mandated to do what with the latest development in regard to, the revocation of that particular statement in regard to the validity of some of the certificates that were presented to the IEBC. So we have DPP, DCI, EACC, IEBC, all of them clashing ahead of the polls, or as the polls near. Now, IEBC is currently being sued for scrapping the manual register. Which direction will this particular suit take? We're going to be keeping tabs on that as we focus on matters from the courts there under our segment there, Scales of Justice. And in as far as matters of, social being, is that the courts have now given a directive that couples are free to divorce if their love dies. Now, traditionally, marriage could only be dissolved in certain grounds. The court that had that even a pastor was not able to bring this couple together. And this is in regard to a story that was actually a case that was in the courts in front of Justice Anthony Murima, who found a couple named Iao, that's a wife, and Sa's husband, had fallen out of love and they were so suspicious of each other that the union could not be mended. This is an article that has detailed, that particular ruling and why the courts took such a turn, and where it indicated that 1 out of 14 couples in Kenya are likely to divorce, with the counties that are leading in divorce cases happening to be Nairobi, Mombasa, and Nakuru. While with Nairobi having 1,125 divorce cases, 103 divorce cases in Nakuru, 102 divorces in Mombasa. However, there are places where marriage fights do not end in court. As we wrap up this is something that we need to highlight, issues of, we made this decision for life, where others are opting to live for a number of reasons. There are places where marriage fights do not end up in divorce or in court. What am I talking about, or what are these areas? They happen to be Ronyenjes, Wajir, Narok, Mumias, Garissa, Garsen, Kitui, and Kathimani, where the courts have had only 1 or 2 cases of divorce. Remember, further details in regard to stories that are making headlines is available on the website. That is www.kbc.co.ke. I'm Regina Manyara, and I wish you a pleasant viewing ahead. Just to remind you, Thursday is the new Friday.